Hey everybody, my name is Kowalczuk. I'm a coach here at Cloud9 CrossFit. Today we're going to be covering the foundation movement, the shoulder press. The shoulder press is important because it's going to be building strength for those shoulder to overhead movements, more compound movements like the push press and the jerk and the split jerk. It's also important because it is a lift in the CrossFit total, which is a total test of strength, or just for people that are beginners that are looking to improve their overhead strength. A lot of gyms do have a foundation program that will cover this, but today we're going to be talking about some points of performance and also some common faults that you might see, especially as the load goes up, and how you can stay nice and tight and also nice and safe. This is Urban Ninja Fitness and Sports channel. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one rep of the shoulder press from the front and one rep from the side. Okay, so now that you've seen a rep from the front and a rep from the side, we're going to go through the setup. There's a little bit of a checklist before you actually want to put the bar overhead. So my feet are going to be in what we call the jumping stance, which means my feet are underneath my hips. So if I were to ask you to jump and touch the ceiling, how you would naturally be standing with your feet is about where you want to be. Okay, and then I'm going to continue to set up from the ground up. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weight my heels by wiggling my toes. You want your weight on your heels. This weight engages the posterior chain for a efficient lift. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and I'm going to squeeze my butt muscles as tight as I can make them. Okay, and that's also going to engage my abs. I want to brace myself in my abs like somebody's about to come up and punch me in the stomach. And what that does is it creates midline stabilization, which allows me to support weight as I go overhead safely. Okay, so I have nice tight abs, weights on my heels, butt's nice and tight. My front rack position is not going to be as high as, let's say, for a front squat if you're familiar with that, or like a clean. So I have a full grip on the bar, just outside my shoulders. My elbows are in front of the bar, but they're not super high and they're not behind it. So they're in front of it. I don't want to be too far in front because then I'm going to lose mechanical advantage as I get to that sticky spot, which we'll get to in a minute as I try to go overhead. So finally in my hands, I'm going to squeeze my pinkies, and what that does is it engages my arm so that I can stabilize the weight as I go overhead. The cues that you'll use after you set up, you're going to draw your head back and simply press the bar up until the bar is in line with the center of your feet or your heels. So once again, weight is on my heels, I'm going to wiggle my toes, squeeze my butt, make abs, got my full grip, pinky squeezed, elbows in front of the bar. I'm going to draw my head back out of the way and press straight up, reinserting my head underneath the bar until the bar's over my heels, locked out. Okay, show you another rep. So weights on my heels, squeezing my butt, tightening my abs like I'm about to be punched, full grip on the bar, elbow slightly in front. I'm going to draw my head out of the way, press, lock out. Bar finishes over the heels. Okay, so now that you've seen the shoulder press from the front and side and the points of performance from the ground up for a successful, safe, efficient lift, we'll talk about some of the common faults that I at one point did myself and that I see a lot of athletes do when they're coaching, that best case scenario makes them not move as much weight, worst case scenario could actually injure them. And the first one is losing or not having a straight bar path, which means rather than pulling their head out of the way and pressing straight up overhead, they're actually moving the bar around their head. And the reason that that's bad is for the same reason that holding a kettlebell out in front of you like this is a lot harder than holding it like this. The closer the weight is to your center line, which goes right down the middle of your body, the stronger you will be. So you want to attempt to stay on that line, and the athletes that are pushing the weight forwards around their face are losing that efficiency. So here's what that looks like. So a bit of an exaggeration, but in this particular movement, just a matter of a half inch will make a difference between getting past the sticky spot of the lift, which we'll get to in a minute, or not getting past the sticky spot of the lift. Okay, so one more fault we're going to talk about today, and we tend to see this more, or I tend to see this more when they start to go up in weight. They're starting to get more towards, let's say, their 1 rep max of the shoulder press, is they lose midline stabilization, which means they lose tightness in their core. They're not squeezing their butt, and they kind of have like this arched belly out position as the weight starts to go overhead, primarily when the bar is right above their forehead, which is kind of the sticky spot you're trying to power through. So what you want to do there is you really want to maintain midline stabilization and get back underneath the bar once it gets above head. This way you can sometimes, a lot of times, press that out. So if you've ever seen somebody going for like a 1 rep max shoulder press, usually if they get the bar a little bit slightly above their forehead, they can kind of press out of it. It's really getting past that sticky spot. And that's why we're going over this fault, because a lot of times they'll almost try to turn it into like a bench press, which is going to limit the efficiency of the movement. So here's what that looks like, losing midline stabilization. And then they'll try to press out of that when the weight gets heavy. But what you want to do is, as you draw your head out of the way, and you get to that sticky spot, which is usually right about here, you really want to try to get underneath the bar, get that bar over the heels, and then a lot of times what you'll find is your muscles will engage and you'll be able to lock out. So just some points of performance that you want to try to incorporate into your training, and faults that you want to try to keep out of your training to help you out with the shoulder press for shoulder to overhead movements, whether you're doing CrossFit or gymnastics or just general fitness. So go ahead and get after it.